What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven here with your afternoon snap, and today we are taking a look at the finals of the Community Gaming Weekly Tournament with Z Amazing versus Sanutora here. Z Amazing is playing Loki. Don't actually know what Sanutora is playing yet, but Black Knight is not a card I was expecting to see, especially in the finals of an event like this. Black Knight, I would say, is a little bit more of like a fringe card typically. It did just get a buff in the most recent patch, but yeah, definitely was not exciting. That's a little bit of a spicier card, I would say, as opposed to the more tried and true Loki deck that we are looking at here. This is also going to be kind of a spicy game, I think, with the Nexus and Elysium as our first two locations. Those are pretty high-rolly locations, so I think this is going to be an exciting one to kick things off here. We've got really cheap cards for this Loki deck, and I think Elysium kind of favors the Loki deck, but the Nexus could definitely favor a big Black Knight deck. So definitely this one could go either way. We can see the Falcon returns these one-cost cards to our hand, and they're free. So that'll make we can like dump these cards back out really easily and move that werewolf all around all sorts of places. Jubilee hits armor. That's not super exciting, and then Collector off the top into the Nexus is going to be pretty good for the Loki deck here too. They're going to be able to dump their hand really, really easily and fill it up again just as easily for that Collector to have a big Collector. We are going to fill our hand here, so that's going to minimize the chances of drawing Loki, but a big werewolf into the Nexus is going to be good. Blade discards the Hulk, but that's not even that great here because you could have just played the Hulk this turn into the Nexus because of Elysium, and now Cosmo, like the way that you benefit from that is playing like Ghost Rider into Nexus now, but Cosmo's going to be able to shut that off, so this is looking pretty good for the Loki player here. Gonna drop Cosmo and then can drop a few other just like smaller cards this turn. And the Black Knight Sanutora doesn't really have too many ways to capitalize. Here's Cosmo. Okay, so Cosmo just into Ebony Blade doesn't like catch anything off guard, so that's good for Sanutora. And then Z Amazing actually didn't play anything last turn, so that way they could keep their werewolf in the Nexus, and they're still going to be able to drop their whole hand. That looked like a snap from Sanutora, which is kind of surprising. Sanutora is going to be able to win and take over the Nexus. They're only losing it by 9 right now. But I don't think they're going to have enough power in the Nexus to win the entire game. Snowguard Hawk can turn the Nexus off. Master Mode could be like a little bit of disruption, but what I was going to say is Snowguard Hawk will turn the Nexus off and then it'll turn back on again. So it doesn't just like completely win the game here, but I think that Z Amazing should potentially snap, and I think this is a pretty good spot for them to be in, because Camp Lehigh, yeah, that's going to add an extra card to their hand. Mirage is going to add an extra card to their hand, so now they're up by 13 in the Nexus, which is just going to be tough to beat regardless, and then it'll turn off for a second. Giganto comes out, so yeah, they win in the Nexus, but they lose the other two locations. It's not often that you see that. Win the Nexus, lose the game. But the Nexus was so close there that Z Amazing was able to pull that one off despite losing. The Nexus could have done it for 8 cubes, and we would have just been done with the finals immediately. But that's going to be a 4-cube game. Sometimes you want to play it a little bit conservatively, especially when you don't know exactly what your opponent is doing before you snap. This is an easy snap though. Yeah, Loki Collector into Camartage, and a pretty good retreat there from Sanutora. There are some fun things a discard deck can do with Camartage. You can like double discard, double reanimate something, or double discard 2 things and then reanimate them both all into Camartage. But Yeah, that's a good retreat there, I think. This game kicks off with Nico Minoru on the Demon spell, and that's going to get pulled into Great Web as the only play there for turn 1. And Warrior Falls is our second location. That's an interesting one. There's a few different cheap cards on both sides of the board here with Jubilee, and then Black Knight and Blade all being kind of cheap cards. So we're going to see Jubilee get stolen there from, or not stolen, but we're going to make a copy of that with Mirage, and then Black Cat gets discarded, and the Bifrost is location number 3. So we've got a bunch of movement going on in this one. And we're going to see Falcon plus some more cheap cards come down for Z Amazing, and then they'll pick up their other stuff with the Falcon. This time still leaving them with a space in the hand to potentially draw Loki here next turn. And we'll find an Angela off of the Maria Hill from there. So a lot of options. Snowguard could mess with some of these locations. Not going to mess with the Bifrost, though. That's going to get active this turn. Cosmo into the Great Web would be really weird because then Cosmo's going to move over into the Bifrost. So probably not looking to do that. And looks like they're thinking of Nico to maybe turn off one of these trickier locations. Okay, they'll turn off the Bifrost here, which could be a bad location for a Loki deck because then you have all of your cards on the right and you can't contribute more power there. So Nico's going to turn off the Bifrost into Death's Domain, which, because of how the ordering that works, Angela actually destroys itself and Snowguard gets destroyed here. So that was pretty awkward, and Jubilee got to hit something better than armor. That's going to hit the Hulk, and now we've got a lead from Santora, and an awkward spot for Z Amazing here. You can either play something into Warrior Falls, at which point it maybe dies. You could kill Loki with the Demon here, or you just play it into Death's Domain and it dies. But if you play into Warrior Falls, it can move into the Great Web, and then you lose that location, so they're going to play Loki into Death's Domain to just destroy their own Loki. We see Lady Sif discarding the Infinite, potentially setting up for some big reanimation on the final turn of the game. No Black Knight yet. Loki goes down, and we've got the Blob in our hand as well. So Sanatora is running a Blob deck. That's pretty fun. And then armor from Loki, a 1-cost armor to win Death's Domain. That's pretty good. Plus a free Black Knight to just maybe win Warrior Falls. Battling for all 3 locations here. I feel pretty good about this. If I'm Z Amazing, I feel like. Now, you could potentially, you could lose Death's Domain to the Infinite from Ghost Rider. But then you're still, and then maybe it moves over into Great Web or something. We're going to see a retreat from Z Amazing. Okay, that's a little surprising. I actually felt like Z was in a reasonable spot there, getting to battle for all 3 locations. There must be something. So, if they played Blob into Warrior Falls, I don't know. It feels like to me, I must not be thinking of something, but it seemed like they had the game locked up there in all 3 locations. So, yeah, not sure what I'm not thinking about. White Hot Room, I would say, definitely favors the Loki deck here. That's going to be good. As you can see, the Loki deck can dump a bunch of cheap cards. Yeah, the Nico and the Snowguard. You can play the Nico here, I think. Z might be a little bit scared to do that, but I think you could play the Nico and you will trigger the White Hot Room before you trigger the Nico. But after the last game with the Death's Domain happening, yeah, either way, a snap is going to cause a retreat there from Sanatora, which I think is a good snap, good retreat. Could have even snapped a little bit earlier, but definitely a good retreat there as the Loki deck just getting to play with +3 energy for the rest of the game. seems pretty good. And now we are in high stakes mode. We are playing for 2 cubes already, and it is 9-4. So a pretty good position here for the Loki deck. Just one more. This could be the final game here if either of these players are willing to snap. We see Snowguard into Machine World and then Falcon into Machine World, trying to give Sanatora a bunch of cards. So that way, like if they play Blade, they might accidentally discard something not what they were intending to discard. So that's kind of funny there, and we'll see Black Knight and Snowguard both get dumped on this turn. But that is going to continually like fill up your hand with maybe these cards that you don't want. But then we see a snap from Sanatora, so Titan is a pretty good location, I would say, for the Black Knight deck in the same way that Elysium could have been useful. This is like a one-sided Elysium in terms of the ways that Sanatora would be looking to use that discount. So a snap is going to cause a retreat there from the Loki player, and we'll move into round 6, which is going to be a Limbo game. And I feel like Limbo favors Black Knight. It just gives you more time to assemble the cards that you are looking to pick up. So yeah, this is looking good so far for Black Knight. We're not going to play the Falcon, and then Armor from Sanatora. Armor really good to set up for big blobs. And then we'll see Agent Coulson with some cheap cards from Quinjet. Not like the most powerful thing that a Loki deck can do, but still brings a little bit of power to the table here, giving another Shang-Chi and an Arrow. And Nico is on the copy a card mode, and we're going to use that to get, I think that's like the best mode when you are playing the Loki deck generally, and we're going to use that to get an additional copy of Cosmo, play around the Blob, play around that Ghost Rider, and play around those discard spells. Okay, Blob is going to get discarded, so now we just have to Cosmo and land the Cosmo where we think the Ghost Rider's gonna go, and we have priority. So this is looking pretty good for the Loki player here in terms of shutting these different things down. So Dream Dimension's making everything a little bit more expensive, but Quinjet's also making everything a little bit cheaper at the same time, so they're kind of battling back and forth. And we're going to see Snowguard to grab Hawk form. That's going to be really important, I think, here in a Limbo game. And then just Black Cat from Sanatora. So, oh, the Snowguard Hawk is, you can't play it into either Cosmo location, but I don't think that that matters because you're winning by so much power in 2 locations right now that I think this should be good. And interestingly, with the change to Arrow, this Arrow now pulls the Black Cat. So yeah, you could just play Snowguard Hawk plus Arrow into Limbo, pull the Black Cat, you'll be tied in Dream Dimension, you'll be up by 9 in Limbo and up by 8 in Stark Tower, and that should beat anything that your opponent is trying to do. So I think that'll wrap it up here, and that'll get a surprise 4 cubes because the game will end as well, and I think that should be it. So yeah, Z Amazing just debating what order to play the cards in maybe, but it doesn't seem like the order really matters here. Yeah, just play Arrow and then play the Snowguard Hawk. No, okay, they were, I guess, afraid of the yeah, I mean, you could have lost to Ghost Rider if you did that. Ghost Rider pulling a big blob means that you could lose on differential, right? Because Blob's just going to like always win games that have anything to do with differential. But Sanator doesn't play that. They just play a Hulk. Now, I think that Z Amazing still has a pretty good play here. Loki into Stark Tower, plus Snowguard Baron to Dream Dimension means that you're playing to win all 3 locations. So even like a Blob, they'd have to play Dr. Doom because they have to interact with multiple locations here. Otherwise, yeah, Dr. Doom wins Doesn't win in Limbo, but the Doombots would win it in both Dream Dimension and Stark Tower, because Z Amazing's just trying to win by a little bit in both of those locations. So Doctor Doom would be big if Sanatora is playing it. No guarantee that you're playing Doctor Doom, though, in an Ebony Blade deck. Oh, Magneto! Magneto's a way to interact with multiple locations, and they did play a card to Stark Tower. They had the 1-cost Black Knight there, which just barely wins Stark Tower, and Sanatora is now back in the game. 4 cubes actually gets Sanatora the lead in this series for the first time. Now 4 cubes to 3 against Z Amazing. Wow. Okay, that was potentially a big misplay there from Z Amazing to not just end the game on turn 6. I could see maybe why you'd do it, to play around the Blob when you miss with your Cosmo. But yeah, that's unfortunate. And now we've got another Nexus game, which again, I think is pretty good for Sanatora. We do have Loki. Okay, Sanatora is going to snap. We'll see what that makes Z Amazing do. Are they going to stay in it here for 3 cubes? They won the last game with the Nexus. They're going to stay in it for 3 cubes. Sanatora discards the Black Cat. Cosmo is like maybe a reason enough to stay. When you can Cosmo into the Nexus, it means that you don't have to worry about Blob just like losing you the game. So that's pretty good. Then we've got Mirage, and we've got a District X game. Okay, that's gonna make this one pretty spicy. Now, Z Amazing can still just Loki all of this District X stuff away, but District X is gonna make for an interesting game. Sanatora already making use of it there with Deathlock into the Nexus. We see Sunspot off the top for Z Amazing, but they could also just Loki. Quinjet is really good. It gets 4 power in Lake Hellas, and then makes all of your cards cheaper from District X rather. Everything that you're drawing each turn is going to be a little bit cheaper. And then we could see like Blade into Cosmo. That's kind of a reasonable play too, just because it's a cheap card that they can throw into the Nexus. We're going to see a similar idea from Sanatora's side of the field here, with Lady Sif and Blade going into that Cosmo, and then we will see Loki, and we find the Blob, but now Z Amazing is kind of cutting themselves off with their own Cosmo. District X, interestingly, is very interesting with the Blob, because you might not have as as like powerful cards in your deck. We saw Sunspot and Hobgoblin drawn from District X. Obviously that's going to give you like negative power, but you do have more cards in your deck with the 10 random cards as opposed to like the 5 or so, maybe 3 or so cards that you'd have otherwise. Yeah, typically like 3. No play from Sanatora means that Infinite is coming off the top, but Negasonic Teenage Warhead is going to destroy the Infinite. That is a crazy way to win the game with Negasonic from District X. Yeah, Infinite not going to stick the landing there. Would have been good enough to win the game, for sure. 33 power in every location. But instead, Negasonic Teenage Warhead has got something to say about that. That was incredible. Now Sanatora is down to 1 cube, and we are almost done with it here, potentially. Kunlun, a really good location for Werewolf by Night, just getting to grab a little bit of incidental power over the course of the game. I think is going to be really good for Z Amazing. Armor into Pet Mansion meets a Mirage, and we pick up a Lady Sif. Space Throne, not great for Z Amazing, so that is kind of interesting. We'll drop Werewolf there for now, but like I said, that Werewolf's going to move around a little bit into and out of Kunlun, assumedly. Lady Sif going to discard Giganto. You can't reanimate into Space Throne, but They do have the Ebony Blade as a turn 4 play. We could just see that get thrown into Space Throne. That's pretty straightforward. And with Maria Hill as the draw, looks like we're going to not see Loki get played for a second, and instead just like filling up the hand with Agent Coulson and Maria Hill. That'll fill the hand back up to 7. No, maybe do just want to go for Loki. No, I think we're gonna see the full hand into the turn 5 Loki. That makes sense. And then Ebony Blade into the Space Throne. Ebony Blade pretty like showing off the new buff here with the Ebony Blade into Space Throne, because it can't get Shang-Chi'd. So it really is just like enough to win that location already. Cosmo, probably enough to win one location, but you have to win both of these other locations here now. Maybe Loki could help you. You're not going to be able to play Giganto into the Space Throne, and we find the Blob. I guess the question here, though, is the Blob, how big is the Blob when you play it in this Loki deck? And yeah, that's a really awkward part of, or a really good part of Blob is like the Loki deck. You have to be like tracking how big your Blob is, even if it doesn't matter. If you have like some sort of deck tracker or something on, then you're fine. But I have no clue how big this Blob would be for Z Amazing. They've drawn most of their big cards. What's in their deck is like Collector, and then maybe like Nico and some other cheap stuff, probably. So I don't think this Blob, I don't know, you don't need that much power on it though. That's already at 8 power. If there's like 2 more cards that are both 3 each, you could battle for the Space Throne, but it looks like Z does not feel comfortable doing that. So we are, no, I mean, they might, right? Like, yeah, Blob into Space Throne and then Snowguard into Pet Mansion, battles for all 3 locations. You're already at max cubes, so you kind of have to go for something here, and looks like it's not going to be that much of anything, just a little bit more power across the board. But Blob from Sanutora should be enough to just win the game. Yeah, 50 power in that location, 40 power Blob. Sanutora is going to take 2 cubes from Zamazing, and now we are at 1 cube apiece in this finals. This has been really back and forth, and a great finals here, no matter how this one shakes out. So really exciting games as we go into game 9 of the finals. This will be the last game unless they tie or something. Not expecting that really though. Maria Hill as a nice little turn 2 play. Jeff, a pretty nice pickup as Senatora discards the Black Cat, and Asteroid M, it's a fine location. It's going to force Cosmo into that location. Pretty vanilla locations though overall to start this game off, and pretty vanilla card too in Jeff. That's like not a super exciting one. Mirage is going to find us a cheap Blade. Just saying us because we're watching from Z Amazing's perspective here. Mojo World, I think, definitely favors Z Amazing as a deck that can dump their cards a lot easier. Plus, like Jubilee, Ghost Rider, things that Sanutora would normally be able to use to dump cards are all going to get pulled over into Asteroid M. So I think Z Amazing is ahead right now, winning in one location. Blade discards the Blob, so that is kind of interesting as well. Quinjet into Asteroid M, Falcon just to return some of these cards. It seems pretty reasonable. And then looking like a Blade, if you play them in this order, Blade is going to discard Snowguard. So whether you want that or not is up to you, but that does, I guess either way you're going to be able to draw next turn, right? Well, now I'm forgetting what the other card was that Z Amazing played. Yeah, Quinjet. So either way, you don't fill your hand here, but they're going to choose to discard Snowguard. Jubilee into Mojo World. Like I said, that's going to get pulled over into Asteroid M after Lady Sif discards the Infinite. And, you know, we haven't seen Hela yet either. We haven't seen Ghost Rider. But we also, I think this could be, like, this is setting up pretty well for a big Hela play here. I'm sure that Sanatora is running one or both of those cards with this full discard suite, not just relying on Black Knight, though we haven't actually seen either of those, which is kind of funny. I didn't catch what this Nico spell was. Oh, it's draw 2 cards. Okay, that is also a pretty good Nico spell. Gonna let you find some additional cards here, and then Snowguard Hawk to turn off Mojo World, but also turn off New York. That's the important thing here. So that way Sanatora can't just like move some cards around to grab some free power. Sanatora is gonna currently be winning Mojo World, but I don't think that's gonna be for too long. Awkwardly, Z Amazing has priority, so this Shang-Chi is not going to be super useful either, though Cosmo could be. Cosmo could be really useful if, well, okay, yeah, Asteroid M is off, so now you actually have the opportunity to drop Cosmo wherever you want it. That's really important, because now you don't have to worry about, now you can actually play Cosmo, and your opponent can't just easily play around it. Looks like Z Amazing is going to go for Snowguard Bear, though. Instead, get a little bit more points into Asteroid M, and then, of course, play for the win over in Mojo World. With a lot of resources committed right now over in Mojo World with both the Collector and 4 cards at the location, but it's somewhat reasonable to do so. But if Sanatora has the Hela, getting back Blob and Infinite, Infinaut, this could be bad. Yeah, that's gotta be a Hela at this point in the game, or Sanatora is just out of it. Snowguard Bear and Luke Cage not gonna be doing too much. There's the Hela, gets back the Infinaut and the Blob, both into New York, and Black Cat is just barely enough by 1 power to snag the win in Mojo World. Wow. Blob, Infinaut, obviously a little bit overkill. Those could have split up a little bit, but a win by 1 over in Mojo World is a crazy way, and Hela is a crazy way to end the series there. Those were really fun games. That's going to be it for me today. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.